The stars burned wrong tonight. Commander Sarah Chon pressed her face against the cold metal of the observation window and watched her world die below. New Terra had been her home for 32 years. She had grown up in the farming valleys, learned to fly in the blue skies, and sworn her oath to protect this place in the grand capital city. Now all of it was fire and smoke. The alien ships hung in space like dark beetles. They were massive things, bigger than anything humans had ever built. Their hulls looked wet and alive, covered in ridges and spines that pulsed with sickly green. Light. The biggest one was 3 miles long and shaped like a twisted spine. Admiral Zexthel's flagship. Sarah had memorized every detail from the intelligence reports. Not that the reports had helped anyone survive. Her ship, the U.E.'s Phantom, drifted silent in the shadow of an asteroid. The stealth systems kept her hidden, but they would not work forever. Sarah watched another transport try to escape the planet below. It was a civilian ship, full of families and children. The alien fighters swarmed it like angry wasps. Green energy beams cut through the transport's hull. It broke apart in a shower of metal and fire. No escape pods launched. There was no time. Sarah's hands shook as she gripped the control panel. She had watched this happen 6 times now. 6 transports destroyed. Hundreds of people dead in seconds. Her orders were clear. Observe and report. Do not engage. Wait for the fleet to arrive. But the fleet was not coming. The main human force was 3 days away, and by then there would be nothing left to save. The aliens called themselves the Kethvar Dominion. They had appeared at the edge of human space 8 months ago with their bioships and energy weapons. 12 worlds had fallen since then. Always the same pattern. The aliens arrived in overwhelming force, destroyed any resistance, and moved on. They took nothing. They wanted nothing except destruction. The communication system crackled to life. Sarah listened to the final transmissions from the planet below, military posts going silent one by one. Civilian emergency channels full of screens and static. Her old flight instructor, Captain Morrison, was leading the last fighter squadron. From Epsilon Base, his voice came through clear and steady, the way he had taught her to speak in combat. All units, this is Morrison. We are down to 3 birds. Aliens have breached the perimeter. Sarah, if you are listening up there, tell Earth what happened here. Tell them we fought. Tell them we did not surrender. The transmission ended. Sarah closed her eyes and counted to 10. When she opened them, the lights from Epsilon Base were gone. Morrison was dead. They were all dead. Admiral Zextel stood on the bridge of his flagship and felt satisfaction flow through his bio-enhanced nervous system. The humans had fought better than expected. Their primitive fusion drives and kinetic weapons showed creativity. But creativity meant nothing against superior technology. The Dominion's bioships could repair themselves. Their energy shields absorbed most human weapons. Their neural network allowed perfect coordination between thousands of vessels. This colony world had fallen in 18 hours. Not the fastest. Conquest, but acceptable. The human fighters had shown particular determination, flying their small craft against impossible odds. Zextel respected that, in the way a hunter respects dangerous prey, but respect did not change the outcome. Status. Report, Zextel commanded. His voice carried through the bioneural network to every ship in the fleet. All surface resistance eliminated, his second-in-command responded. Orbital defenses destroyed. 3 human ships escaped during the initial assault, but our sensors show no threats remaining in the system. Zexthel nodded. The escaped ships would carry word of the defeat to the human core worlds. Fear was a useful weapon. When the Dominion arrived at Earth, the humans would already know that resistance was futile. Prepare the fleet for departure. We move to the Sol system in 6 hours. The bridge crew acknowledged the order. Bioorganic computers throughout the ship began calculating jump coordinates. In 6 hours, the Dominion would take one step closer to ending the human threat forever. Sarah floated in the dark between stars and made her choice. The Phantom was an experimental ship, built in secret yards and armed with weapons that existed nowhere else in the human fleet. Antimatter warheads, quantum torpedoes, a jump drive that could fold space in ways the aliens had never seen. She was supposed to test these weapons in controlled conditions, not use them in actual combat. But controlled conditions no longer existed. She activated the ship's computer and began pulling up star charts. The alien fleet was heading for the Sol system. Earth. 2 billion people lived there, along with the orbital shipyards and military academies. If Earth fell, humanity died with it. The main human fleet was moving to intercept, but they would arrive too late. Admiral Harrison's ships were tough but old. They used conventional weapons and tactics. Against the Dominion's technology, conventional was another word for suicide. Sarah plotted an intercept course. The Phantom could reach the alien fleet in 2 days if she pushed the engines past safety limits. She would have to shadow them, study their movements, find some weakness that the other battles had missed. The smart thing would be to rejoin the human fleet, share her intelligence, fight as part of a coordinated force. But Sarah was not feeling smart. She was feeling angry. The images from New Terra played in her mind on endless repeat. The burning cities, the destroyed transports, Morrison's last transmission. She thought about Earth's blue skies and white clouds, about her sister's children who sent her drawings of spaceships and aliens, about all the people who trusted the human fleet to protect them. The Phantom's engines came online with a whisper of contained fusion. Sarah fed power to the stealth systems and began accelerating toward the edge of the system. Behind her, New Terra continued to burn. Ahead, the alien fleet moved through space like a swarm of predators. Confident in their power dots, Sarah checked her weapons one more time. 12 antimatter warheads, 36 quantum torpedoes, enough firepower to level a city. Against 300 alien ships, it seemed like nothing. But humans had always been good at making nothing into something, at finding ways to win when winning was impossible. The computer finished calculating her pursuit course. Sarah engaged the autopilot and settled back in her chair. She had 48 hours to figure out how to stop an entire alien fleet with one experimental ship. Most people would call it suicide. Sarah called it Tuesday. The stars looked normal again from this distance. Clean points of light against black space. But Sarah knew the truth now. In those clean points of light, people were dying, ships were burning, worlds were falling. The Kethver Dominion was spreading across the galaxy like a disease, and the only cure was firepower. Sarah smiled for the first time since New Terra. The aliens had made one crucial mistake. They thought humans would break under pressure. They thought superior technology meant automatic victory. They had never faced a human with nothing left to lose. The Phantom slipped into hyperspace like a ghost, following the trail of the alien fleet. Behind her, New Terra's star grew small and distant. Ahead, somewhere in the dark, 300 alien ships moved toward Earth. They did not know they were being hunted. They would learn soon enough. The Phantom caught up with the alien fleet on the second day. Sarah watched from the edge of sensor range as 300 Kethver ships moved through space in perfect formation. They traveled in a massive diamond shape, with the biggest warships at the center and smaller vessels protecting the flanks. Every ship moved in harmony with the others, like parts of a single living creature. Sarah had never seen anything like it. Human fleets were organized but flexible. Captains made their own decisions. Ships broke formation when needed. But the aliens moved as one mind controlling many bodies. Their bio-neural network linked every vessel, every weapon, every thought. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. She spent the first day just watching and learning. The alien formation never changed. The same ships always held the same positions. The same patrol routes repeated every 6 hours. They were efficient, but efficiency could become predictability. And predictable enemies could be beaten. Sarah pulled up the intelligence files on her computer. The Dominion had conquered 12 human worlds using the same tactics every time. Overwhelming force applied to the strongest defenses first. Destroy the orbital platforms, eliminate the fleet, then crush ground resistance. They never divided their forces, never used subtlety or deception. They did not need to. Their technology was superior to anything humans could build. But Sarah was beginning to see the weakness in that strength. The aliens fought like a hammer, big, powerful, unstoppable. But hammers only worked when the nail stayed still. What happened? When the nail moved? The first supply convoy arrived on the third day. Sarah watched 6 medium-sized ships drop out of hyperspace at the edge of the system. They were carrying fuel and ammunition for the main fleet. Standard procedure, according to the intelligence reports. The Dominion could not carry enough supplies for extended campaigns, so they used regular convoys to keep their forces fed. The supply ships moved toward the main fleet in a straight line. No escorts, no evasive maneuvers. Why would they need protection? They were in Dominion space now. New Terra was conquered. The human fleet was days away. Nothing could threaten them here. Sarah smiled and powered up her weapons. The first quantum torpedo hit the lead supply ship before its crew knew they were under attack. The ship exploded in a burst of blue fire, its cargo of antimatter fuel adding to the destruction. The second torpedo took out another transport before the aliens could react. By the time their shields came online, Sarah was already gone, jumping back into hyperspace. The attack lasted 30 seconds. 2 ships destroyed, 4 damaged, 0 human casualties. Sarah checked her instruments as the Phantom raced away from the battle zone. All systems green, stealth field holding. The aliens had not even gotten a clear sensor reading on her ship. Admiral Zexthul felt the shock of the attack through the bio-neural network. 2 supply ships gone. The humans had found them somehow. But how? His sensors showed nothing in the system except debris and his own fleet. The attacking ship had appeared from nowhere, struck without warning, and vanished like smoke. Analysis, he demanded. His tactical officer was already reviewing the data. Single attacker. Small ship, probably a human frigate or destroyer. Advanced. Stealth systems. They used quantum torpedoes, which suggests experimental technology. How did they find our supply convoy? Unknown. The convoy followed standard routes and procedures. They should have been undetectable. Zexthul studied the tactical display. The supply ships had been at the edge of the system, far from his main force. For a human ship to attack them, it would have to be operating alone, without fleet support. That was suicide. Humans were emotional creatures, but they were not usually stupid. Double the sensor sweeps, he ordered. I want every cubic meter of space monitored. This ghost ship will not escape again. Sarah struck again 6 hours later. This time the target was a patrol group, 3 destroyers searching for her previous position. She came at them from below, using a gas giant's gravity well to mask her approach. The patrol ships were spread out in a search pattern, their shields down to conserve power. The attack was over before it began. Sarah's antimatter warheads punched through unshielded hull plating like bullets through paper. 2 destroyers died instantly. The third managed to get a distress signal out before Sarah's final torpedo found its mark. But this time, the aliens were ready. Fighter squadrons launched from the main fleet, racing toward the battle zone. Sarah barely escaped, her stealth field flickering under the strain of rapid acceleration. Alien energy beams passed close enough to heat her hull plating. She made it to hyperspace with seconds to spare, but the message was clear. The aliens were learning. The next attack would be harder got. Sarah floated in the dark between stars and planned her next move. She had sunk 5 enemy ships in 2 attacks, but the main fleet was barely scratched. 300 ships remained, and they were now on high alert. Their patrols had doubled. Their sensor sweeps overlapped. Finding gaps in their defenses would be much harder now, but Sarah had learned things too. The alien ships were powerful, but slow to react. Their perfect coordination became confusion when unexpected things happened. And most importantly, they thought like conquerors, not like defenders. They were used to being the hunters, not the hunted. The next convoy arrived. 18 hours later. This time it had escorts. 12 warships surrounded the supply vessels in a protective formation. Sensors swept space constantly. Fighter patrols circled the convoy like guard dogs. Sarah watched from 1,000,000 kilometers away and smiled. The aliens were adapting, but they were still thinking like a hammer. More ships, bigger guns, stronger shields. They could not imagine a nail. It refused to stay still. She programmed her ship's computer with a new attack pattern. Instead of hitting the convoy directly, she would target its escorts first, draw them away from the supply ships, make them chase shadows while she struck from unexpected angles. The attack began with a single torpedo fired from extreme range. It missed the convoy entirely, exploding harmlessly in empty space. But the aliens reacted as Sarah had hoped. Half the escort fleet raced toward the source of the attack, leaving the convoy temporarily weakened. Sarah was already moving. While the escorts chased sensor ghosts, she came at the convoy from the opposite direction. Her quantum torpedoes found their targets before the alien crews could adjust. 3 supply ships died in the first salvo. Sarah was gone before the escorts could return, but she was not finished. As the alien ships regrouped around their damaged convoy, Sarah struck again, from a third angle. This time she used her ship's experimental railguns, firing metal slugs at incredible velocity. The escort's energy shields were designed to stop beam weapons, not solid projectiles. The railgun rounds punched through their defenses and shattered. Their hull plating docked by the time the attack ended. 7 alien ships were dead or dying. The convoy was destroyed, and Sarah had vanished into hyperspace once again, leaving only wreckage and confusion behind. Admiral Zexthul stared at the casualty reports and felt something new flowing through the bio-neural network. Not anger or frustration, but something colder, fear. His subordinates were beginning to doubt. The Dominion had never faced an enemy like this. Ships that appeared from nowhere. Attacks without warning. A foe that refused to stand and fight. How many ships have we lost? He asked. 12 confirmed destroyed, 8 damaged, his tactical officer replied. The human is targeting our supply lines and patrol groups. Our main fleet remains intact, but morale is declining. 12 ships against a single human vessel. It was impossible, but the evidence floated in space around them. Zexthul had commanded fleets for 30 years. He had conquered worlds and shattered enemy armadas. But he had never faced an enemy that fought like this. Set course for the Sol system, he ordered. Maximum speed. We will end this threat before it grows. But even as his fleet jumped toward Earth, Zexthul knew the truth. The threat had already grown. Somewhere in the dark between stars, a single human ship was hunting his forces. And for the first time in his long career, Admiral Zex Thiel was not sure who was predator and who was prey. Sarah had been hunting the alien fleet for 8 days when she discovered their secret. It happened by accident during her 50th attack on a Dominion patrol group. Her sensors picked up something strange when the alien ships tried to coordinate. Their response: energy patterns that looked like quantum communications, but much more complex. She recorded everything and analyzed the data while hiding in an asteroid field. What she found changed everything. The alien fleet was not just organized, it was connected. Every ship in the Dominion force shared the same mind through quantum entanglement communicators. That was why they moved in perfect formation. Why their attacks were so coordinated. Why they never made tactical mistakes. But it was also their greatest weakness. Sarah pulled up the technical specifications on her computer screen. The quantum communicators required specialized hardware, massive processors that could handle thousands of simultaneous connections. According to her analysis, only the largest ships in the fleet could carry such equipment. The command vessels at the center of the formation, she counted them carefully. 7 ships, each over 2 miles long. They looked different from the other. Alien vessels, more organic, more alive. Their hulls pulsed with the same energy patterns her sensors had detected during the battle. These were the brains of the Dominion fleet. Destroy them, and the entire force would become blind and deaf. But reaching them would be impossible. A command ship stayed at the very heart of the formation, surrounded by layers of escorts and defensive screens. Hundreds of smaller vessels protected them like antibodies protecting vital organs. Sarah had been picking off stragglers and supply convoys for over a week, but she had never gotten within 50 kilometers of the fleet's center. She needed a new plan. Something desperate and dangerous. Something the aliens would never expect, because no sane person would attempt it. Sarah smiled and began calculating suicide odds. The human fleet finally arrived at the edge of the Sol system 2 days later. Admiral Harrison's forces looked impressive. On paper, 47 warships, including 6 heavy battlecruisers and the flagship U.S. Defiance. But Sarah knew the truth. She had watched the Dominion destroy fleets twice that size. Human weapons were primitive compared to alien technology. Human armor could not stop their energy beams. In a straight fight, the aliens would win. Sarah opened a communication channel to the human fleet. Admiral Harrison's face appeared on her screen, looking tired and worried. Behind him, the bridge of the Defiance buzzed with activity as officers prepared for battle. Commander Chun, Harrison said, "We've been tracking your attacks on the alien fleet. Impressive work, but you should rejoin the formation now. We'll need every ship for the coming battle." Sarah shook her head. "With respect, Admiral, the fleet can't win this fight. Not with conventional tactics. I've been studying the aliens for 8 days. I know how they work." She transmitted her data to the Defiance. Harrison's expression grew more troubled as he reviewed her findings. The quantum communication network, the command ships, the perfect coordination that made the Dominion fleet so deadly. "You're suggesting we target their command vessels," Harrison said, "but they're too well protected. We'd lose half our ships just getting close enough to fire." "You would," Sarah agreed, "but I might not. The Phantom has experimental stealth systems and weapons they've never seen before. I can get close if I use everything the ship has." Harrison was quiet for a long moment. Sarah could see him doing the math. 1 experimental frigate against 7 command ships and their escorts. The odds were beyond hopeless. "What exactly are you proposing, Commander?" Sarah took a deep breath. "A suicide run. I load every antimatter warhead the Phantom carries and take them straight to the heart of their formation. If I can destroy even a few command ships, Their coordination will break down. Your fleet might have a chance. Absolutely not. I won't order a suicide mission. You're not ordering it, Admiral. I'm volunteering. The silence stretched between them. Finally, Harrison spoke again. His voice was softer now, almost fatherly. Sarah, you've done more than enough already. Come home. Let the fleet handle this. Sarah looked at her tactical display. The alien fleet was 12 hours away from Earth. 2 billion people lived on humanity's homeworld. Her sister's children were down there, probably looking up at the stars and wondering when the fighting would end. They trusted the human fleet to protect them. But Sarah knew the fleet could not win alone. I'm sorry, Admiral, she said, but I have my orders. What orders? You've been operating independently for over a week, Sarah smiled sadly. The orders Captain Morrison gave me before he died. Tell Earth what happened at New Terra. Tell them we fought. Tell them we didn't surrender. She paused. I'm going to tell them with firepower. She cut the communication before Harrison could reply. The Phantom turned away from the human fleet and began accelerating toward the center of the solar system. Behind her, 47 human warships moved into defensive positions around Earth. Ahead, 300 alien vessels continued their approach. Like a swarm of mechanical locusts, Sarah spent the next 6 hours preparing for death. She programmed the ship's computer with attack patterns and target priorities. She armed every weapon the Phantom carried. 12 antimatter warheads, 30 quantum torpedoes, experimental railguns loaded with depleted uranium slugs. Enough firepower to crack a moon dot. She also recorded a message to her sister back on Earth, just in case someone found the ship's black box after the battle. She kept it simple, told her she loved her, told her to take care of the kids, told her that dying for family was not really dying at all. The alien fleet reached Earth's outer system at 1400 hours, ship time. Sarah watched from the shadow of Jupiter's largest moon as the Dominion forces spread into attack formation. They moved with the same perfect coordination she had observed for 8 days. Every ship in its assigned position, every weapon powered and ready. Admiral Zexthel's flagship led the formation, its bioorganic hull pulsing with sickly green light. Sarah could see the other command ships arranged around it like points of a star. 7 targets. 7 chances to cripple the alien force. 7 reasons to push her ship past every safety limit and prey the antimatter warheads. Held together long enough to reach their targets, she activated the Phantom's stealth systems and began her final approach. The experimental drive pushed space around the ship, bending light and gravity to hide her passage. For the first few minutes, it worked perfectly. Sarah slipped between the alien patrol groups like a ghost, invisible to their sensors. But stealth had limits. The closer she got to the fleet's center, the more energy her systems consumed. The more energy they consumed, the harder it became to hide the ship's signature. By the time Sarah reached the outer defensive screen, alien sensors were starting to detect anomalies. Warning lights flashed on her control panel. The stealth field was fluctuating. In another few minutes, it would fail completely. Sarah looked at her tactical display and measured the distance to the command ships. Still too far for a guaranteed hit with the antimatter warheads, but close enough to cause serious damage if she could just get a little nearer. She rerouted power from life support to the stealth systems. The air in her cabin grew cold as the environmental controls shut down. But the stealth field stabilized. Buying her precious extra minutes. An alien patrol destroyer passed within 500 meters of her ship, so close that Sarah could see the biomechanical details of its hull through the observation window. Weapon pods that looked like enormous eyes, sensor arrays that resembled insect antennae. The ship was beautiful in an alien way, but Sarah felt no admiration, Only cold determination. The destroyer moved past without detecting her. Sarah pushed deeper into the formation, past cruisers and battleships that could have vaporized her ship with a single shot. Each kilometer brought her closer to the command vessels. Each second brought her closer to the point of no return. Finally, she reached optimal firing range. The 7 command ships floated before her like sleeping giants, their hulls alive with quantum energy. Sarah armed her antimatter warheads and programmed the firing sequence. In 30 seconds, she would reveal her position and begin the attack. After that, there would be no retreat, no escape, no second chances. Sarah thought about New Terra burning, about Morrison's last transmission, about her sister's children looking up at the stars. She thought about 2 billion people on Earth who were depending on her to buy them time. 30 seconds became 20, then 10, then 5. Sarah whispered a prayer to whatever gods watched over crazy pilots and pressed the firing button. The war was about to change forever. The first antimatter warhead left the Phantom's launch tube at exactly 14:37 hours. Sarah watched it streak toward the nearest command ship like a miniature star, its containment field glowing white-hot against the darkness of space. For 3 seconds, everything was silent. Then the alien sensors found her. Alarms screamed through the Dominion fleet as the Phantom's stealth field collapsed. Energy readings spiked across every alien instrument as Sarah's ship revealed itself in a blaze of weapons fire. The single human frigate hung in space like a bright angel of death, surrounded by 300 enemy vessels. Admiral Zexthul felt the shock wave through his bioneural implants as the first warhead struck. The command ship Nexus Prime simply vanished in a ball of pure energy, taking its quantum communicators and 3,000 crew members with it. Instantly, 50 ships in the fleet's northern sector went silent, their connection to the network severed. All vessels, target the human ship, Zexthul roared. Destroy it now. But Sarah was already moving. The Phantom's experimental drive kicked in with a sound like thunder, pushing the ship through space at impossible speed. She rolled between 2 battle cruisers as their energy beams carved through the space where she had been. Her second antimatter warhead launched while she was still in the turn, racing toward another command vessel. The aliens were fast, but Sarah was faster. She had spent 8 days studying their movements, learning their patterns. She knew exactly how long it took their weapons to charge, how quickly their ships could turn, how their targeting systems worked. All of that knowledge flowed through her mind as she danced between their attacks. The second warhead found its target just as Sarah completed her turn. Command ship Void Seeker exploded like a dying sun, its bioorganic hull peeling away in layers of fire and metal. Another 100 ships lost their connection to the network. The perfect Dominion formation began to wobble as disconnected vessels tried to coordinate on their own. Sarah's ship screamed through the gap left by the destroyed command vessel. Alien fighters swarmed after her like angry insects, their green energy beams lighting up space around her. One beam grazed her starboard hull, overloading several systems. Warning lights flashed red across her control panel, but Sarah ignored them. She had bigger problems. A battlecruiser loomed directly ahead, its massive bulk blocking her path to the next command ship. Its main guns were already turning toward her, preparing to fire. At this range, even a glancing hit would vaporize the Phantom. Sarah had perhaps 2 seconds before those guns found their mark. She did something the aliens never expected. Instead of trying to dodge around the battlecruiser, she flew straight at it. Her railguns opened fire at point-blank range, sending depleted uranium slugs through the alien ship's armor like bullets through tissue paper. The battlecruiser's shields were designed to stop energy weapons, not solid projectiles traveling at relativistic speed. The railgun rounds punched through the ship's hull and detonated inside its reactor core. The battlecruiser died in a chain reaction of explosions that lit up half the fleet. Sarah flew through the expanding debris field, using the wreckage as cover from pursuing fighters. Her third antimatter warhead launched as she cleared the debris. This one targeted the largest command ship, a massive vessel that looked more like a living creature than a machine. Its bioorganic hull writhed and pulsed as the warhead approached, defensive systems trying desperately to intercept the projectile. They failed. The warhead penetrated the ship's shields and detonated deep inside its core structure. The explosion tore the vessel apart from within, sending chunks of alien metal spinning through space. Sarah felt a moment of savage satisfaction as she watched it die. 3 command ships down. 4 to go, but the aliens were learning. The remaining command vessels began moving deeper into the formation, surrounding themselves with protective screens of smaller ships. Their coordination was breaking down, but they still had overwhelming firepower. Sarah's ship could not survive much more damage. She looked at her instrument panel and saw the truth written in red warning lights. Hull breaches on 3 decks. Primary power down to 60%. Stealth systems completely offline. Life support failing. The Phantom was dying around her, but it still had teeth. Sarah armed her quantum torpedoes and selected rapid-fire mode. Instead of trying to penetrate the defensive screens around the command ships, she would go through them. The torpedoes streaked out in waves of 6, each one programmed to target a different escort vessel. The aliens had never seen weapons like these before. Their shields flickered and failed as exotic matter warheads detonated against their hulls. A path opened through the defensive screen. Sarah pushed her dying ship through the gap, racing toward the 4th command vessel. This one was ready for her. Its main guns fired in perfect synchronization, filling space with deadly energy beams. Sarah rolled and twisted, trying to avoid the barrage, but there were too many weapons. Too much firepower. One beam caught her port engine, vaporizing the entire drive section. The Phantom tumbled out of control, spinning through space like a broken toy. Sarah fought to regain control as more beams reached for her ship. Emergency power flickered on just long enough to stabilize her flight path. She was too close to the command ship now. Too close to miss. Her 4th antimatter warhead launched at almost point-blank range, crossing the distance between ships in less than a second. The command vessel tried to turn away, but momentum is a harsh master. The warhead struck its forward section and detonated. The explosion was so bright that Sarah had to shield her eyes. When her vision cleared, the command ship was gone. Only expanding plasma marked where it had been. 4 down, 3 to go, but the Phantom was finished. Her engines were dead. Her weapons systems were failing, and the remaining alien ships were closing in from all sides. Sarah ejected her remaining antimatter warheads and set them for proximity detonation. If she could not reach the last command ships, maybe she could at least damage them when the aliens finally killed her. The warheads drifted away from her ship like deadly seeds, waiting for enemy vessels to come within range. Admiral Zextel watched the human ship tumble helplessly through space and felt something he had never experienced before. Respect mixed with terror. One small vessel had destroyed 4 command ships and dozens of escorts. The bioneural network was in chaos. Ships were firing at shadows. Formations had collapsed into confused clusters. The mighty Dominion fleet was falling apart. "How many ships have we lost?" he demanded. 87 confirmed destroyed, his tactical officer replied. 43 more damaged. The human vessel appears to be disabled, but our sensors detect multiple antimatter signatures around it. Zexthal understood. The human pilot had set a trap. The warheads floating around her ship would detonate if anyone got too close, but they could not stay away forever. The human threat had to be eliminated. "Send in the fighters," he ordered. "Destroy that ship from long range." But even as he gave the order, Zexthel knew the damage was done. The perfect coordination that made the Dominion unstoppable was broken. His fleet was still powerful, but it was no longer invincible. And somewhere in the distance, he could see the human reinforcement fleet moving into attack position. Sarah watched the alien fighters approach and prepared for the end. Her ship was dead in space, but her spirit burned brighter than ever. She had done the impossible. One human vessel against 300 alien ships. 4 command vessels destroyed. The enemy formation shattered. She thought about Morrison's last words. "Tell them we fought. Tell them we didn't surrender." Sarah smiled as the first fighter missiles reached her position. She had told them with firepower, just as she promised. The Phantom died in a ball of fire and light, taking Sarah Chun with it, but her sacrifice had changed everything. The Dominion fleet was blind and confused, no longer the perfect weapon. It had been, and in the distance, 47 human warships accelerated toward battle, ready to finish what one brave pilot had started. The real fight was about to begin. The death of the Phantom sent shockwaves through both fleets. Admiral Harrison watched from the bridge of the Defiance as Sarah's ship vanished in a ball of fire. For a moment, silence filled the human command center. Then the tactical officer spoke, his voice filled with wonder. "Admiral, look at the alien formation. It's falling apart." Harrison turned to the main display and saw something impossible. The Dominion fleet, which had moved in perfect coordination for 8 days, was now scattered across space like broken toys. Ships drifted out of position. Some vessels fired at empty space, targeting sensor ghosts. Others simply stopped moving, as if their crews had forgotten what they were supposed to do. "Commander Chun was right," Harrison whispered. "She broke their network." In the center of the alien formation, Admiral Zexthel felt his perfect war machine dying around him. The bio-neural network that connected his ships was in chaos. With 4 command vessels destroyed, huge sections of the fleet have lost all coordination. Ship captains who had never made independent decisions suddenly found themselves alone in the dark. "Restore communications with the outer squadrons," Zexthel ordered. "Impossible, Admiral," his communications officer replied. "The quantum relays are gone. We can only maintain contact with ships within 50 kilometers. 50 kilometers. In a formation that stretched across thousands of kilometers of space, that meant most of his fleet was operating blind. The Dominion's greatest strength had become its greatest weakness. Ships that had never learned to think for themselves now faced human forces without guidance or support. All vessels maintained defensive positions. Zexthel broadcast on standard radio frequencies. But radio was slow and limited. Many ships would never receive the message. Others would not know how to follow it. Admiral Harrison seized the moment. "All ships, attack formation Delta 7. Target the disconnected vessels first. Show them what humans can do when we fight together." The human fleet moved forward like a pack of wolves. 47 ships against almost 300 aliens. The odds were still terrible, but everything had changed. The aliens were no longer a single coordinated force. They were individual ships, confused and isolated. The U's Defiance led the charge, its heavy guns blazing. Harrison had chosen his target carefully. A cluster of alien destroyers that had drifted away from the main formation, their crews clearly unsure what to do without network guidance. The human battle cruiser's missiles struck home before the alien ships could react. 3 destroyers died in the opening salvo. Across the battlefield, similar scenes played out. Human captains, trained to think independently and adapt quickly, found isolated alien vessels, and destroyed them one by one. The aliens' superior technology meant nothing when they could not coordinate their defense. Captain Rodriguez of the cruiser Valiant found a group of alien fighters attacking empty space. Their targeting systems locked onto phantom contacts from their damaged network. His ship's point defense systems made short work of the confused fighters. Captain Singh of the destroyer Thunderbolt used her ship's speed to dart between alien battleships, striking at their engines before they could bring their main guns to bear. But the real breakthrough came when Lieutenant Commander Torres of the corvette Raptor discovered something extraordinary. A group of alien ships in the northern sector had begun firing on each other. Their damaged network was sending conflicting signals, making them see allies as enemies. Admiral Harrison, Torres reported over the con system. You need to see this. The aliens are shooting at their own ships. Harrison watched in amazement as alien vessel after alien vessel turned their weapons on former allies. The bioneural network that had made them invincible was now making them destroy themselves. Ships that had fought together for years suddenly saw each other as threats. All vessels, stay clear of the alien confusion zones, Harrison ordered. Let them finish each other off. Admiral Zextol saw his fleet tearing itself apart and felt something break inside his mind. 50 years of military service, 30 successful campaigns, 12 conquered worlds. All of it undone by a single human pilot and her experimental ship. The Dominion's technological superiority meant nothing without coordination. Their bio-enhanced crews were helpless without network guidance. Sir, his tactical officer said, quietly, we're receiving surrender requests from 17 vessels. Their captains want to disconnect from the network before it drives them insane. Surrender. The word was foreign to Zexthel's experience. The Dominion did not surrender. They conquered or they died. But watching his fleet destroy itself, there, Admiral began to understand why some species chose submission over annihilation. Patch me through to the human fleet, he said. The communication came through on the Defiance's main channel. Admiral Harrison found himself staring at an alien face. For the first time, Zextel looked almost human, except for the biomechanical implants covering half his skull and the yellow eyes that seemed to glow with their own light. I am Admiral Zextel of the Kethver Dominion, the alien said. His voice was strangely melodic, like wind through crystal caves. I wish to speak with whoever commands your forces. Admiral Harrison, United Earth Defense Force. What do you want? Zextel was quiet for a long moment, watching his ships continue to fire on each other in the background. I want to understand, he said finally. We destroyed your colonies. We killed your people. We came here expecting easy victory. But one of your ships turned our greatest strength against us. How? Harrison thought about Sarah Chun, who had died alone in the dark between stars. About Morrison and the other defenders of New Terra. About all the humans who had refused to surrender even when victory seemed impossible. You made one mistake, Admiral, Harrison said. You thought superior technology guaranteed victory. But you forgot something important about humans. What? We don't know when to quit. Even when we're outnumbered. Even when we're outgunned. Even when every logical calculation says we should surrender. We keep fighting because that's what humans do. We adapt. We improvise. We never give up. On the tactical display, the last organized alien resistance was crumbling. Ships that had terrorized the galaxy for months were now fleeing in panic or begging for mercy. The mighty Dominion fleet was broken. Your pilot, Zextel said, the one who destroyed our command ships. She knew it was suicide. Commander Chun volunteered for that mission. No one ordered her to die. She chose to sacrifice herself to save others. That's another thing about humans, Admiral. Sometimes our greatest weapon isn't our technology. It's our willingness to pay any price to protect the people we love. Zexthil closed his eyes and felt the weight of defeat settle on his shoulders. The Dominion had conquered 12 worlds by relying on superior coordination and overwhelming force. They had never faced an enemy that fought with pure determination. An enemy that turned disadvantages into advantages. An enemy that refused to accept defeat even when it seemed inevitable. I formally surrender my remaining forces to your command, Zexthil said. We will not resist further. Harrison nodded. Around them, the battle was already ending. Alien ships were powering down their weapons and broadcasting surrender codes. The Dominion's invasion of human space was overdone in the hours that followed. Rescue teams found the Phantom's black box floating in the debris field where Sarah had made her last stand. They recovered her final message to her sister and her tactical logs showing how she had planned the impossible attack. The data would help human engineers understand alien technology and develop new defenses. But more importantly, they recovered something else. Proof that a single human, armed with nothing but courage and determination, had turned the tide of an interstellar war. The galaxy learned that day why humans were dangerous, not because of their weapons or their technology, but because of their refusal to surrender. Even when faced with impossible odds, Sarah Chon had kept her promise to Captain Morrison. She had told Earth's story with firepower. She had shown the galaxy that humans fight hardest when they have nothing left to lose. And in doing so, she had saved not just Earth, but the future of human civilization among the stars. The war was over. Humanity had won. And across the galaxy, other species began to learn what the Kethver Dominion had discovered too late. When you threaten a human's family, you don't just face their technology. You face their fury. And that fury, once unleashed, can break even the mightiest fleet. The meeting room on Zelthani Prime was quiet except for the soft humming of the air recyclers. 7 different alien species sat around the curved table, their forms casting strange shadows under the blue lights. Ambassador Kethver of the Zelthani looked at each face with growing despair. His own people resembled tall, thin birds with silver feathers and large black eyes. The others were just as different from each other as they were from him. The holographic display in the center of the Follet table showed the same terrible news it had shown for the past 3 months. Red markers spread across the star map like a disease. Each red dot was a world that had fallen to the chromic hegemony. Each one meant billions of dead civilians. The chromic fleet has taken the Vega system, reported General Thomas's, a thick-bodied creature with 4 arms and skin like gray stone. They killed everyone. No prisoners, no survivors. Just like always, Kethver's feathers ruffled with stress. The Chromek had been conquering worlds for over 200 years. They were perfect killing machines. Their technology was better than anyone else's. Their ships were faster and stronger. Their weapons could destroy entire planets. But worst of all, they never stopped. They never showed mercy. They never listened to reason. What about the peace talks? Asked Dr. Yilla, her tentacles waving nervously. She was from a water world where her people had never known war until the Chromek came. Dead, Kethver said simply. Ambassador Horth and his entire team were executed. Yesterday, the Chromek sent us the recording. The room fell silent. Everyone had seen what the Chromek did to prisoners. It was not quick. It was not clean. The Chromek seemed to enjoy causing pain and fear. Our combined fleets? General Thomas's asked, though his voice showed he already knew the answer. Destroyed at Kepler Station, Kethver replied. Admiral Grex fought well. His forces lasted almost 6 hours against the Chromek battle group. In the end, it made no difference. Dr. Yilla's tentacles turned pale. 6 hours? Our best admiral and our strongest fleet lasted only 6 hours. The Cromach have been fighting wars for 1,000 years, said Elder Morth, the oldest being in the room. His species looked like walking trees with too many eyes. We have been at peace for just as long. We forgot how to fight. They never forgot how to kill. Kethver stood and walked to the large window that looked out over the capital city. Millions of his people went about their daily lives below. They did not know that in 6 months, maybe less, the Cromach would be here. They did not know that their government had no way to stop what was coming. We could surrender, suggested Dr. Yilla quietly. The Cromach do not take surrender, Elder Morth said. They take everything. They leave nothing. General Thomas's slammed, one of his 4 fists on the table. Then we fight. We make them pay for every world. With what? Kethver asked, turning back to face them. Our fleets are gone. Our weapons cannot hurt their ships. Our planets cannot hide from their sensors. We are not warriors. We are farmers and teachers and builders. They are killers, perfect killers. The silence stretched on. Outside, the sun was setting, painting the sky in colors that reminded Kethver of blood. Soon, very soon, those colors would be real. Wait, said Dr. Yilla suddenly. Her tentacles were moving fast, the way they did when she was thinking hard. What about the new species? The ones from the outer rim? Which ones? Elder Morth asked. The humans, from the Sol system. Kethver's feathers flattened against his head. You mean the Deathworlders? The primitives? They are not as primitive as we thought, Dr. Yilla said, calling up a new display. I have been studying their transmissions. Their planet is a nightmare world of extreme weather, deadly animals, and natural disasters. But they survived. More than that, they thrived. The display showed images from Earth that made the aliens uncomfortable. Massive storms that could destroy cities. Earthquakes that split the ground open. Volcanoes that threw rock and fire into the sky. Animals with claws and teeth and poison. Plants that could kill with a touch. Look at their history, Dr. Yilla continued. They have been fighting wars for their entire existence. Not just against their environment, but against each other. They have had hundreds of wars, thousands of battles. They have weapons that can kill millions at once, and they have used them. General Thomas's studied the images with growing interest. They fight each other constantly? Not anymore, Dr. Yilla said. They recently achieved global unity after something they call the Third World War. But before that, yes, they were always fighting someone. Kethver was not impressed. So they are violent primitives. How does that help us? Because they know how to fight. Dr. Yilla's tentacles were bright with excitement now. We need soldiers. We need people who understand war. We need killers to fight killers. Their technology is centuries behind ours, Elder Morth pointed out. What good are primitive weapons against Cromach shields? Technology is not everything, General Thomas said slowly. I have studied the Cromach victories. They win because they are better fighters, not just because they have better weapons. Maybe these humans could teach us something. Kethver looked at the human images again. The creatures were small and soft-looking. They had no claws or natural armor. They seemed weak compared to most galactic species. But Dr. Yilla was right about one thing. They had survived on a world that should have killed them 1,000,000 times over. What are you suggesting? He asked. We call them, Dr. Yilla said. We ask for help. Military advisors, trainers, maybe some soldiers if they can spare them. They will want payment, General Thomas warned. We can offer them technology, Elder Morth said. Faster than light travel, medical advances, energy weapons, things they do not have yet. Kethver thought about it. The idea was desperate. The humans were unknown. They might refuse to help. They might demand too much. They might be just as bad as the Chromak. But what choice did they have? Even if they agree, he said, what can a few human advisors do against the entire Chromak fleet? Maybe nothing, Dr. Yilla admitted. But right now, we have zero chance of survival. Even a small chance is better than none. The room was quiet. Again. Outside, the first stars were appearing in the darkening sky. Somewhere out there, the Chromak fleet was moving closer. In 6 months, maybe less, this room would be empty. This city would be ruins. His people would be dead. I will compose the message, Kethver said finally, but I will be honest with them. We are asking them to die for strangers. We are asking them to fight an enemy they cannot defeat. We are asking them to buy us time to evacuate what we can before the end comes. Maybe that is not what they will hear, Dr. Yilla said quietly. What do you mean? These humans have a saying, she replied, reading from her data. They say that the best defense is a good offense. Maybe they will not want to just buy time. Maybe they will want to win. Kethver looked at her with something that might have been hope. It was a feeling he had almost forgotten. Send a message, he said. The message reached Earth on a Tuesday morning. It came in on frequencies that human scientists had only recently learned to monitor. The signal was weak and full of static, but the computer systems at the Deep Space Communications Center in Colorado managed to clean it up enough to understand that Dr. Elena Vasquez was the first human to hear an alien voice. She had been working the night shift, drinking her 4th cup of coffee and watching for signals from space. Most nights, she found nothing but cosmic background noise. This night was different. The translation program took 3 hours to work out the basic meaning. When it finished, Dr. Vasquez read the message 7 times before she believed it was real. Then she picked up the red phone that connected directly to the Pentagon. This is Dr. Vasquez at Deep Space Communications. I need to speak to General Morrison immediately. We have received first contact. 2 hours later, the message was on the desk of President Sarah Williams. She read it while her coffee grew cold, and her morning briefing waited outside. The message was simple and terrifying. To the people of Earth, we are the Zelfani Confederation, a peaceful alliance of 7 species from the stars you call Vega, Altair, and Proxima Centauri. We are dying. An enemy called the Chromak hegemony is destroying our worlds one by one. We have tried peace. We have tried diplomacy. We have tried war. Nothing works. They are too strong. In 6 months, they will reach our home worlds. Billions will die. We need help. We can offer you advanced technology in exchange for military assistance. We know you are warriors. Your planet has taught you to fight. Please, we are running out of time. President Williams set the message down and looked out the window of the Oval Office. The world outside looked normal. People went to work. Children played in parks. No one knew that aliens existed. No one knew that somewhere in space, entire civilizations were being wiped out. She pressed the button for her chief of staff. Get me Admiral Chun, General Park, and Dr. Richardson. Emergency meeting in the Situation Room. Also get the heads of NASA, the CIA, and the Joint Chiefs. We need everyone. The Situation Room filled quickly. Admiral Sarah Chun was the first to arrive. She was small and thin, but everyone in the room knew she was the best military strategist alive. She had won the Third World War almost single-handedly. General Park came next. He was a big man with scars on his hands from the Korean campaign. Dr. Richardson shuffled in last, looking confused. He was the head of NASA and not used to emergency military meetings. President Williams did not waste time. We have been contacted by aliens. They are asking for military help. Read this. She handed out copies of the translated message. The room was silent as they read. Admiral Chun finished first and looked up with bright eyes. How do we know this is real? General Park asked. Dr. Richardson cleared his throat. The signal came from outside our solar system. The mathematical proofs they included are beyond our current understanding. Either this is real, or someone has technology so advanced. But the question does not matter. What do we know about these chromic? Admiral Chun asked. Very little, President Williams replied. But if half of what the aliens say is true, we are looking at a threat that could eventually reach Earth. Eventually, General Park said. The message says they are 6 months away from the alien home worlds. Even if they won every battle instantly, it would take them years to reach us. Admiral Chun was studying the star charts on the wall. Not necessarily. If they have faster-than-light travel, and if they are as aggressive as the message suggests, they might see Earth as a future threat. Better to eliminate us now, while we are weak. The room was quiet as everyone thought about this. Dr. Richardson spoke first. The technology they are offering could advance human civilization by centuries. Faster-than-light travel alone would change everything. If we survive to use it, General Park added. President Williams looked around the table. I want opinions. Do we help them? General Park shook his head. We barely won the Third World War. Our military is still rebuilding. We don't have the resources to fight an interstellar war. Dr. Richardson disagreed. We have to try. If these chromac are really as dangerous as the message suggests, Earth is next anyway. Better to fight them far from home with all eyes. All eyes turned to Admiral Chun. She was staring at the message, but her mind was clearly somewhere else. Finally, she looked up. How long since the message was sent? She asked. 3 weeks, Dr. Richardson replied. The signal traveled at light speed from the Vega system. So we have about 5 months before they reach the alien home worlds, Admiral Chun said. If we are going to help, we need to move fast. You think we should do this? President Williams asked. Admiral Chun smiled, and it was not a nice smile. Madam President, the Third World War taught us something important. When someone threatens innocent people, we don't send advisors. We don't send trainers. We send everything we have. But our technology is primitive compared to theirs, General Park protested. Maybe, Admiral Chun replied. But technology is not everything. The aliens lost because they think like civilians. They tried peace first, then diplomacy, then war. We think like soldiers. When someone threatens us, we hit first and hit hard. President Williams was already thinking ahead. What would we need? Admiral Chun pulled out her tablet and started making notes. Everything. Every ship we can space-worthy. Every soldier we can train for zero-gravity combat. Every weapon we can adapt for space warfare. The cost would be enormous, General Park said. The cost of losing would be higher, Admiral Chun replied. Besides, this is what we do. Humans fight. It's what we're good at. President Williams made her decision. Draft the response. Tell them we're coming. But make it clear that we don't do half measures. If we're fighting this war, we're fighting to win. 3 days later, the response was sent. It was much shorter than the alien message. To the Zalthani Confederation. We have received your message. Earth will provide military assistance. Prepare detailed intelligence on chromic forces technology and tactics. We will arrive in 4 months. Humanity does not retreat. We do not surrender. We finish what others start. Hold your positions. Help is coming. The message was signed by President Williams, but the words were Admiral Chun's. Within hours of sending the response, Earth began to change. Factories that had been making cars started making spacecraft. Soldiers who had been training for terrestrial warfare started learning to fight in space. Scientists who had been working on civilian projects were reassigned to weapons development. United Nations held an emergency session. For the first time in human history, every nation on Earth agreed on something. The alien threat was too big for any one country. This would be a human response, not an American or Chinese or European one. Admiral Chun was given command of the largest military force ever assembled. Ships from every navy were retrofitted for space combat. Soldiers from every army were retrained. For zero-gravity warfare, pilots from every air force learned to fly spacecraft. The shipyards worked around the clock. Old nuclear submarines were converted into spacecraft. Aircraft carriers became mobile command centers. Even civilian ships were modified with armor and weapons. But the real work was happening in the training centers. Human soldiers were learning to think in 3 dimensions. They were learning to fight without gravity, without air, without the familiar landmarks of Earth warfare. Admiral Chun watched it all from her command center in Colorado. On the screens around her, she could see the progress of humanity's greatest military mobilization. In 4 months, they would launch the largest fleet in human history toward an enemy they had never seen. She thought about the alien message. They had asked for military advisors. They had asked for trainers. They had asked for help buying time to evacuate. They were going to get something completely different. They were going to get humanity at war. The human fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Zalfani border system just as the Chromic attack began. Admiral Chun stood on the bridge of the U.E.'s Defiance, watching the tactical display with cold eyes. Red dots marked the positions of the Chromic fleet. Blue dots showed the remaining Zalfani ships. Green dots were the human fleet. The numbers were not good. The Chromic had 200 ships. The Zalfani had maybe 50 left. The humans had brought 120 ships, but they were smaller and less advanced than either alien fleet. "Admiral," called Lieutenant Torres from the communication station. "We're receiving a transmission from the Zalfani flagship." "Put it through," Admiral Chun ordered. The main screen flickered, and Ambassador Kethvar appeared. His silver feathers were ruffled with stress, and his large black eyes were wide with panic. "Admiral Chun, thank the stars you made it. But you need to retreat immediately. The Chromac are attacking with their main battle fleet. Your ships cannot survive against their weapons." Admiral Chun's expression did not change. "Ambassador, we didn't come here to retreat. What's the tactical situation?" "The Chromac commander is General Vextar. He has 2 battle cruisers and 18 destroyers hitting our orbital defense platforms. The rest of his fleet is moving to cut off our escape routes. We estimate 12 hours before our defenses fall completely." "Where are your remaining ships?" "Defending the evacuation transports." "Admiral, you must help us escape. There are millions of civilians on the surface." Admiral Chun studied the tactical display. The Chromac ships were larger and more advanced, but they were moving in predictable patterns. They were fighting like they had never faced real opposition before. "Negative, Ambassador. We're not here to help you run. We're here to stop them." She turned to her communications officer. "Open a channel to the Chromic fleet." "Admiral, what are you doing?" Kethvar asked, his feathers standing almost straight up. "Something you should have done months ago." The screen changed, showing a creature that looked like a cross between a lizard and an insect. Its skin was dark green and covered in ridges. Its eyes glowed red in the dim light of its bridge. General Vextar looked at Admiral Chun with obvious amusement. "So the primitives finally arrive," Vextar said, his voice like grinding metal. "I am General Vextar of the Chromic hegemony. You will surrender your ships immediately, or we will destroy them." Admiral Chun smiled. It was the same cold smile she had worn during the Third World War, right before she turned the tide of the entire conflict. "General Vextar, this is Admiral." Sarah Chun of the Terran Defense Force, you have exactly one chance to withdraw from this system. Leave now or face the consequences. General Vextar's mandibles clicked in what might have been laughter. You threaten me? Your primitive ships cannot even scratch our shields. Watch and learn why the galaxy fears the Chromac. 3 Chromac. Destroyers broke formation and accelerated toward the human fleet. Their energy weapons began charging, creating a blue glow along their hulls. Admiral Chun turned to her tactical officer. Commander Santos, execute battle plan Alpha. Yes, ma'am. All ships, this is Fleet Command. Execute Alpha. Repeat, execute Alpha. The human fleet suddenly scattered in all directions. The Chromac destroyers, expecting the humans to form a defensive line, found themselves shooting at empty space. Before they could adjust, the human ships had reformed behind them. Now, Admiral Chun said quietly, the human ships opened fire with everything they had. But instead of energy weapons, they used something the Chromac had never seen before. Kinetic. Rounds, solid metal projectiles accelerated to incredible speeds by magnetic rails. The Chromac shields were designed to stop energy weapons. They were perfect against lasers and plasma cannons. But they did nothing to stop chunks of depleted uranium traveling at a significant fraction of light speed. The first Chromac destroyer was torn apart in seconds. The second managed to turn before a kinetic round punched through its engine section and detonated its power core. The third destroyer got off one shot before human missiles, moving too fast for its point defense systems, turned it into expanding debris. The tactical display showed 3 red dots vanishing. The remaining Chromac fleet stopped moving. Impossible, General Vextar whispered. His red eyes were wide with shock. Our shield stopped nothing. How? Admiral Chun's smile got wider. We don't use energy weapons for ship-to-ship combat, General. We use physics. This changes nothing. Vextar snarled, but his voice had lost its confidence. You destroyed 3 ships with a surprise attack. We still outnumber you 2-1. Actually, Admiral Chun said, checking her display, you outnumber us 1.7-1, but numbers aren't everything. She turned to Commander Santos. Signal the fleet. Battle Formation Delta. Target. Their command ship. The human fleet moved like a school of fish, flowing around the larger Chromac ships. The aliens tried to track them, but human ships were faster and more maneuverable. They had been designed by a species that had spent centuries fighting wars. In 3 dimensions, the Chromac opened fire with everything they had. Energy beams lit up space like a deadly light show. But the human ships were no longer where the beams were aimed. They twisted and turned in patterns that made no sense to alien minds trained in traditional fleet combat. They fight like insects. General Vextar screamed at his tactical officer. Why can't we hit them? Sir, their movement patterns are too random. Our targeting computers cannot predict their positions. Then fire everywhere. Saturate the area. The Chromac did exactly that. Energy weapons fired in all directions, turning space into a maze of deadly beams. Some human ships were hit. The U's Shanghai took a direct hit and exploded. The U East Mumbai lost half its hull, but kept fighting. But while the Chromac were shooting wildly, the human ships were moving with purpose. They were hurting the alien fleet, forcing them into a tighter and tighter formation. Now what are they doing? General Vextar demanded. He got his answer when the human ships suddenly accelerated away from the Chromac fleet. For a moment, the aliens thought the humans were retreating. Then space around the Chromac fleet erupted in nuclear fire. Admiral, Chun had used the oldest trick in human warfare. While the enemy was distracted, she had seeded the space around them with nuclear mines. Dozens of fusion explosions lit up the darkness, and when the light faded, half the Chromac fleet was gone. General Vextar stared at his tactical display in disbelief. 60 ships had become 30 in the space of seconds. His perfect fleet, which had conquered dozens of worlds, was being torn apart by primitives using weapons he barely understood. Kinetic weapons, he said slowly. Nuclear mines. They fight like barbarians. Sir, his tactical officer said, his voice shaking. The remaining human ships are forming up for another attack run. Admiral Chun's voice came over the communication. Channel again. General Vextar, this is your final warning. Withdraw your fleet now, or we will finish what you started. General Vextar looked at his remaining ships. His crews were panicking. His captains were requesting orders. His perfect war machine was falling apart. You cannot defeat the entire hegemony, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. Maybe not, Admiral Chun replied, but we can defeat you. And then we can defeat whoever they send next, and the one after that. Humans don't give up, General. We don't know how. For the first time in his career, General Vextar considered retreat. The Chromac did not run from inferior enemies. But these humans were not inferior. They were something worse. They were unpredictable. All ships, he said slowly, withdraw. To the outer system. The remaining Chromac ships began pulling back. The human fleet let them go, but kept weapons trained on them. Admiral Chun turned back to the communication channel with Ambassador Kethvar. The alien was staring at her with something close to worship. Admiral, how did you do that? Their technology was superior in every way. Technology doesn't win wars. Ambassador, Admiral Chun replied, tactics do. Strategy does. The will to fight does. Your people forgot that. The Chromac never learned it. But they will be back, Kethvar said. They will bring more ships, better weapons. Admiral Chun nodded. Probably, but by then, we'll be ready for them. And Ambassador? Yes. Next time, we won't give them a warning. The news of the Chromac's defeat at Zelthani Prime spread across the galaxy like wildfire. In the great halls of the Chromac High Command on their capital world, Emperor Zethkol listened to General Vextar's report with growing rage. His massive form, covered in black scales and burning with internal fire, cast shadows on the walls as he paced. You retreated, the Emperor said, his voice like distant thunder. The Chromac hegemony has never retreated from inferior forces. General. Vextar kept his head low. My Emperor, these humans are not inferior. They fight unlike any species we have encountered. Their tactics are chaotic, unpredictable. They use primitive weapons in ways we cannot counter. Primitive weapons defeated our shields. They do not use energy weapons against our ships, my Emperor. They fire solid projectiles at incredible speeds. Our shields are useless against them. They also use nuclear explosives as area denial weapons. And their ship movements. Emperor Zethkol slammed his fist on the command throne, cracking the metal. Enough excuses. You lost to primitives who have barely left their home system. My Emperor, another voice interrupted. Admiral Korath, the Emperor's chief military advisor, stepped forward. Perhaps we should study these humans more carefully. Before our next attack. Study them? Emperor Zethkol turned his burning eyes toward the Admiral. The hegemony does not study prey. We devour it. Yes, my Emperor. But consider this. In 200 years of conquest, no species has ever defeated. Our ships in open battle. These humans destroyed 60 vessels in a single engagement. We must understand how. Emperor Zethkol was quiet for a long moment. Finally, he nodded. Very well. Send the Grand Fleet, 3,000 ships. If these humans are so dangerous, we will crush them with overwhelming force. Admiral Korath bowed. It will be done, my Emperor. Meanwhile, 3 star systems away, Admiral Chun was dealing with her own problems. The human fleet had set up a temporary base on a moon orbiting Zelfani Prime. The captured Chromac technology was being studied around the clock by teams of human engineers and scientists. Dr. James Park, no relation to the general, was leading the technology analysis team. He was a small man with thick glasses who got excited about things most people found boring. Right now, he was very excited. "Admiral, you need to see this," he said, bursting into the command center without knocking. Admiral Chun looked up from the tactical reports she was reading. "What is it, Doctor?" "The chromic energy shields. I know how they work. And more importantly, I know how to make them work for us." He activated a holographic display showing the internal structure of a chromac shield generator. Their technology is based on controlled gravitational fields. They create a bubble of distorted space-time around their ships that deflects energy weapons. Can we build them? Better. We can improve them. Dr. Park's excitement was growing. Their shields only stop energy. But if we modify the field generators, we can create shields that stop kinetic weapons too. Admiral Chun set down her reports. "How long?" 2 weeks to build a prototype. Maybe a month to retrofit the fleet. "You have 2 weeks for the prototype." "But Doctor, I need more than defensive improvements." "What about their weapons?" Dr. Park grinned. "Already working on it. Their energy weapons are powerful, but they're designed for long-range combat against slow-moving targets. We can make them faster, more accurate, and much more efficient." "Good. What else?" "Their faster-than-light drives are incredible. 3 times faster than anything we imagined possible. If we can reverse engineer them, do it, all of it. Use every resource we have." Dr. Park nodded and hurried away. Admiral Chun turned back to her reports, but she was interrupted again. This time, it was Commander Santos. "Admiral, we're receiving multiple intelligence reports from across the galaxy. The Chromac are mobilizing everything they have." "Admiral." Chun looked at the star map on the main display. "How much is everything?" Best estimates put the Grand Fleet at over 3,000 ships. They're pulling vessels from every conquered system. This will be their largest force in 2 centuries. When will they arrive? 6 weeks, maybe 8. They're moving slowly to keep the fleet together. Admiral Chun nodded. "That gives us time. Signal Earth. Request immediate reinforcement of the fleet. Also send our technical specifications for the captured technology. I want Earth's shipyards building new vessels with hybrid human chromic systems." "Yes, ma'am." "Admiral, are you sure? We can handle 3,000 ships?" Admiral Chun smiled that cold smile again. "Commander, we're about to find out what happens when an unstoppable force meets an immovable object." The next 6 weeks were the busiest in human history. Earth's shipyards worked around the clock, building new vessels that combined human engineering with captured chromac technology. The new ships were faster, better armed, and better protected than anything humanity had ever built. But Admiral Chun was not just building ships. She was building something more dangerous, a new kind of warfare. The human fleet had grown to 400 ships by the time the Chromac Grand Fleet arrived. It was still outnumbered 7-1, but Admiral Chun had spent weeks preparing the battlefield. The asteroid belt between Zelfani Prime and its outer moon had been turned into a maze of hidden weapons platforms, automated defense systems, and mobile missile batteries. Human engineers had used Chromac technology to create cloaking devices that hid their positions. The entire region was a trap waiting to be sprung. When the Chromac Grand Fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel, they found what appeared to be a small human force waiting for them. Admiral Chun had positioned only 50 ships in visible range. The rest were hidden throughout the system. Emperor Zethkal himself commanded the Grand Fleet from his massive flagship, the World Breaker. The ship was 10 kilometers long and armed, with enough weapons to destroy entire planets. It had never been defeated in battle. Humans, the Emperor said, looking at the tactical display. 50 ships against 3,000. They must be insane. Admiral Koreth was studying the sensor readings. My Emperor, something is wrong. Our sensors detect only 50 ships, but the energy signatures are strange. There should be more. It does not matter, Emperor Zethkal replied. Signal the fleet. Destroy them all. The Kromug Grand Fleet moved forward in perfect formation. 3,000 ships advancing like a wall of death. Their weapons charged, ready to turn the human fleet into space dust. Then Admiral Chun sprang. Her trap. The hidden weapons platforms opened fire first. Thousands of kinetic rounds and guided missiles streaked out from concealed positions. The Kromek had no idea where the attacks were coming from. Their perfect formation turned into chaos as ships tried to avoid weapons they couldn't see. Where are they shooting from? Emperor Zethkal roared. Unknown, my Emperor. Our sensors cannot penetrate their cloaking technology. Then the hidden. Human ships revealed themselves. 350 vessels appeared from behind asteroids, from inside gas clouds, from positions the Kromek had never thought to check. They opened fire with weapons that combined human kinetics with Kromek energy technology. The results were devastating. The new hybrid weapons could punch through Kromek shields and armor like they were made of paper. Ship after ship exploded. As human fire found its mark, but Admiral Chun had saved her best surprise for last. As the Kromek fleet tried to regroup, she activated her final weapon. A computer virus that human programmers had hidden in the captured technology they had been studying. Kromek ships began turning on each other as their computer systems were hijacked. Weapons that should have fired at humans instead targeted other Kromek vessels. Navigation systems directed ships into collisions. Communication networks filled with false orders and contradictory commands. This is impossible. Emperor Zethkal screamed as his mighty fleet tore itself apart. How are they doing this? Admiral Chun's voice came over the communication channel, calm and cold. Emperor Zethkal, this is Admiral Chun of the Terran Defense Force. You made a mistake. You thought you were fighting the humans who came to help the Zelthani. You were wrong. You're fighting the humans who learned from you. The battle lasted 4 hours. When it was over, the Kromek Grand Fleet was gone. 3,000 ships reduced to scattered debris. Emperor Zethkal's flagship drifted powerless, its crew dead, its weapons silent. The galaxy watched in stunned silence as news of the victory spread. The Kromek hegemony, conquerors of 1,000 worlds, had been destroyed by a species that most civilizations had never heard of. Admiral Chun stood on her bridge, looking at the wreckage of the enemy fleet. Commander Santos approached her with a communication tablet. Admiral, we're receiving surrender requests from Kromek-occupied worlds across the galaxy. Also, 17 different species are requesting to join our alliance. Admiral Chun nodded. Signal Earth. Tell them we're going to need more ships. 6 months after the destruction of the Grand Fleet, Admiral Chun stood on the observation deck of the U's Valkyrie, staring at the massive world that filled the viewport. Kromek Prime was a dark planet covered in industrial cities and military installations. It had been the center of an empire that had ruled half the galaxy for over 200 years. Today, it would fall. The siege had lasted 3 months. Human fleets surrounded the planet completely, cutting off all supply lines and communications. But Admiral Chun had not simply bombarded the world into submission. She had something more elegant in mind. Admiral, Commander Santos reported from behind her. The planetary defense grid is down. All orbital stations have been destroyed or captured. The surface is defenseless. Admiral Chun nodded, but did not turn around. What about the civilian population? Intelligence estimates 12 billion Chromax citizens on the surface. Military installations are concentrated in the northern hemisphere. Civilian areas are mostly in the south. And the government? Emperor Zethkol is confirmed to be in the capital city. Our signals intelligence indicates he's trying to coordinate a last-ditch defense, but most of his military commanders have already surrendered. Admiral Chun finally turned away from the viewport. The last 3 months had aged her. Her hair was grayer, her face more lined, but her eyes still held that cold determination that had carried humanity through the war. Signal the fleet. Begin final approach. And Commander, open a channel to the planet. The main screen activated, showing the image of Emperor Zethkol. The mighty ruler of the Chromac looked nothing like the proud conqueror who had sent the grand fleet. His scales were dull, his fire had dimmed, and his red eyes showed nothing but defeat. "Human Admiral," he said, his voice barely a whisper, "you have won. My empire is broken. My fleets are destroyed. What do you want?" Admiral Chun studied the broken emperor for a moment. Unconditional surrender. Immediate release of all prisoners. From conquered worlds. Full reparations to every species the hegemony has harmed. And a complete reorganization of your government. Emperor Zethkol's mandibles clicked bitterly. "And if I refuse?" "Then we finish what you started," Admiral Chun replied. "But this time, we don't stop until every chromic world is free." "You would commit genocide?" Admiral Chun's expression did not change. "We would do what is necessary to ensure this never happens again. But that choice is yours, Emperor." The screen went silent. Emperor Zethkol looked older than his 1,000 years. Finally, he spoke. I accept your terms. The Chromac hegemony surrenders unconditionally to the Terran Protectorate." "Terran Protectorate?" Admiral Chun smiled for the first time in months. "I like the sound of that." The formal surrender took place in the great throne room of the Chromac Imperial Palace. Representatives from dozens of liberated worlds attended the ceremony. Admiral Chun wore her dress uniform, the same one she had worn when accepting Germany's surrender at the end of the Third World War. Emperor Zethkol approached the podium slowly, his massive form diminished by defeat. He carried a data pad containing the surrender documents. When he reached Admiral Chun, he stopped and looked at her with something that might have been respect. "You have destroyed an empire that lasted 1,000 years," he said quietly. "How? Did you do it?" Admiral Chun took the data pad from his hands. "We remembered something your people forgot, Emperor. War is not about who has the biggest guns or the most ships. War is about who wants to win more. My people were warriors for 10 centuries, Emperor Zethkol protested. "No," Admiral Chun replied. "Your people were conquerors. There's a difference. Conquerors fight for power. Warriors fight for something greater than themselves." She signed the surrender document and handed it back to him. "You fought for an empire. We fought for freedom. That's why you lost. The aftermath of the war changed the galaxy forever. The Terran Protectorate became the dominant force in local space. But unlike the Chromac hegemony, it ruled through protection rather than conquest. Any species that wanted to join could apply for membership. The only requirements were a commitment to peace and a willingness to defend other member worlds. Within 2 years, over 50 different civilizations had joined. The former Chromac worlds were given a choice. They could become independent, join the Protectorate, or form their own governments. Most chose independence, tired of being ruled by others. But they also signed mutual defense treaties with humanity, knowing that other threats might emerge from the unexplored regions of the galaxy. Emperor Zethkol was tried for crimes against sentient life by a joint tribunal of the species his empire had conquered. He was found guilty on all counts, but was sentenced to life in prison rather than execution. Admiral Chun had argued for mercy, saying that executing him would make him a martyr. The former emperor spent his remaining years writing memoirs that became required reading at military academies across the galaxy. His final work, titled The Humans, Why We Lost, became one of the most influential military texts ever written. Ambassador Kethfer was promoted to head of the new Galactic Council, a governing body that included representatives from all protectorate worlds. He often spoke about the day the humans arrived and how they had turned a request for backup into the liberation of half the galaxy. Dr. Yilla, the scientist who had first suggested contacting Earth, became the head of the new interspecies technology exchange. Her work on combining human and alien technologies led to advances that benefited every member world of the Protectorate. Admiral Chun retired from active military service but remained as head of the Protectorate Defense Force. She established new military academies on 12 different worlds, teaching alien species the tactical and strategic thinking that had made humanity so effective in combat. But perhaps the most important change was in how the galaxy thought about war itself. The Chromic had seen war as a tool of conquest. Other species had seen it as something to be avoided at all costs. Humanity taught them a third way, war as a tool of protection. The new Protectorate military doctrine was simple. Attack any member world, and you would face the combined might of 50 different species led by humans who had spent their entire history learning how to fight. It was a promise that kept the peace for decades. 10 years after the war ended, Admiral Chun stood once again on an observation deck, this time looking out at Earth. She was older now, grayer, but still sharp. Commander Santos, now an admiral herself, stood beside her. Any regrets? Admiral Santos asked. Admiral Chun thought about the question. The war had cost humanity dearly. Thousands of ships destroyed. Hundreds of thousands of soldiers killed. Earth's resources stretched to the breaking point, but it had also shown the galaxy what humanity could do when threatened. More importantly, it had shown what humanity would do to protect the innocent. No regrets, Admiral Chun said finally. We did what we had to do. The Zalfani called us for backup, Admiral Santos observed. They probably expected a few thousand advisors and maybe some military equipment. Admiral Chun smiled. They got something better. They got humanity. Do you think we'll have to fight another war like this? Admiral Chun looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, in the unexplored regions of the galaxy, other threats might be waiting. Other empires might be growing. Other species might need protection. Probably, she said. But next time, we'll be ready. And next time, we won't be fighting alone. The message that had started it all was simple. We need help. The response had been just as simple. Help is coming. But the result had been something neither side could have imagined. A new age of cooperation between species. A new way of thinking about war and peace. And a new protector watching over the galaxy. The aliens had called humans for backup. Had gotten something much better. They had gotten humanity itself.